The President. Question 1. Reverend Peter KOON. Thank you, President. It has been reported that in August this year, a taxi driver in his 80s struck and killed a Filipino tourist in Chunwan, arousing concerns among various sectors in the community about the driving ability and safety of elderly professional drivers. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. Given that the government has yet to implement the proposals put forward in 2023 to lower the age threshold of commercial vehicle drivers submitting physical fitness certification to the age of 65 and to require them undergoing a medical examination once every year, of the resistance the government encounters when implementing these proposals and whether it can commit to a specific implementation timeline. 2. As there are views that the current physical fitness certification requirements and the examination items for driving license applicants and holders are overly simplistic and fail to ensure the fitness of elderly professional drivers for driving, whether the authorities will review the requirements for medical examination of elderly professional drivers by drawing reference from practices on the mainland or Taiwan, such as introducing more stringent examination items, including reaction tests and screening for chronic diseases, as well as formulating detailed assessment guidelines for doctors. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3. Whether it will draw on practices on the mainland, Taiwan region, or Japan to set a mandatory retirement age for professional drivers. If so, of the details. If not, how it will ensure the driving ability of elderly professional drivers. Thank you, President. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, the government has always attached importance to the health conditions of drivers and understand that the physical condition of drivers is of vital significance to ensuring road safety. With the increasing number of aged drivers, commercial vehicle drivers face relatively high risk due to the nature of the profession. In this connection, the government has conducted a review of the requirements and mechanisms for medical certification of driving license applicants or holders under the Road Traffic Driving License Regulations, Cap 374B, the regulations, with a view to further safeguarding the safety of drivers and other road users. In consultation with the Transport Department, TD, the reply to the various parts of the questions raised by Reverend Peter KOON is as follows. 1 and 2. Currently, when a person aged 70 or above applies for a full driving license of any class of motor vehicle, they must provide a medical certificate completed and signed by a registered medical practitioner to prove that the applicant is medically fit to drive and control a vehicle in that class. Depending on applicants' choices, the validity period of such driving licenses is 1 year or 3 years. The regulations also stipulate that if an applicant is suffering from a disease or physical disability specified in the first schedule to the regulations, the Commissioner for Transport shall review the application. To improve road safety, we consulted the Legislative Council panel on transport in 2023, proposing to enhance the requirements for medical certification of commercial vehicle drivers. Specifically, the government proposes amending the first schedule to the regulations, including raising the standards of eyesight to cover visual acuity and visual field, and adding items applicable to commercial vehicle drivers, including hearing requirements, to enhance the relevant requirements. The government also proposes lowering the age threshold for commercial vehicle drivers to submit medical examination certificates from the age of 70 to that of 65. In addition, the validity period of their driving licenses is proposed to be shortened to 1 year, meaning that an annual checkup is required before the license can be renewed. Meanwhile, requirements for non-commercial vehicle drivers to provide medical certification will remain unchanged. After consulting the Legislative Panel on Transport, we have been listening to the views of all sectors. Recently, we have further consulted various stakeholders, including legislative members, the transport trade, and the medical sector, etc. While society as a whole supports the set direction, some trade representatives suggested relaxing the frequency of medical assessment for drivers aged between 65 and 70. Other stakeholders suggested that consideration should be given to requiring drivers to undergo reaction tests. Medical representatives also pointed out that the need to give greater consideration to the practical circumstances faced by frontline medical practitioners. In response to the latest opinions collected recently, the consultant team from the University of Hong Kong, commissioned by the TD and the medical expert panel and comprising representatives from the Department of Health, the Hospital Authority, the Hong Kong Academy of Medicine, and other bureaus and departments, are reviewing, considering to fine-tune the diseases or physical disability items specified in the first schedule to the regulations, as well as the content of the medical guidelines for medical practitioners' reference, with a view to making the guidelines clearer, more objective, and more practical. To ensure that frontline medical practitioners fully understand the contents of the medical guidelines and the points to note for consulting medical examination and completing medical certificates in the future, and to enhance commercial vehicles drivers' health awareness and their understanding of the new assessment requirements, the TD will make reference to the Marine Department's trial experience with the industry in introducing the medical fitness certificate requirement for local vessel operators, and will invite members of the commercial vehicle industry to participate in the medical assessment trials ahead of schedule during the fourth quarter of this year. The trial aims to collect and incorporate practical feedback from frontline medical practitioners, thereby reviewing and enhancing the overall process. Meanwhile, as regards reaction tests, we will explore the utilization of innovative technology and artificial intelligence, including drawing on the experiences in technological innovation across different regions to test the physical responsiveness of drivers, or to simulate various road situations and driving conditions so as to assess each driver's reaction under different circumstances. Regarding the specific timetable, we are continuing to actively pursue the law drafting in parallel and will further incorporate the views of the consultant team and the expert panel. We will also draw on the experience of the medical assessment trials to be conducted shortly with the trade and medical practitioners with a view to finalizing the legislative proposal and medical guidelines in the fourth quarter. We plan to report to the Electrical Panel on Transport collective findings in the first quarter of next year and to submit the subsidiary legislation amendments to the Electrical. The TD will continue to carry out various preparatory work, including the production of demonstration video clips for frontline doctors, and strive for the implementation of the new arrangements in the second quarter of next year to enhance overall road safety. 3. As regards comment made in the question on setting a retirement age for commercial vehicle drivers, different regions have adopted different practices. For instance, Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom impose no restrictions, whereas the mainland imposes 8 restrictions on the type of vehicles that may be driven. We consider that medical assessment will help prevent illnesses and build healthy lifestyle habits. As nearly 40% of taxi and light bus driving license holders are aged 65 or above, a blanket retirement age would inevitably disrupt the manpower in the trade. The government proposes to first enhance the requirements for medical certification of commercial vehicle drivers at this stage and will continue to review and enhance its effectiveness. Thank you, President. Reverend Peter KOON. Thank you, President. I wonder if the administration will consider setting different requirements for medical assessment for drivers of different age. Say, for example, those aged 60 to 65, they can go to private practitioners. For those above 65, they should be asked to go for medical assessment in public hospitals or government clinics. Secretary. Thank you. As we draft the details of the new arrangements, we will take into account the factors mentioned by Reverend Peter KOON. As drivers of different age face different health risks, we will formulate a more systemic and pragmatic approach in assessing their health conditions. In our expert panel, we have medical organizations and bodies. We have received many comments and advice from them. For a driver aged between 65 and 70, we'd like to collect more data, health information, and risks that they suffer so that we can devise more targeted measures. Now, the age threshold for commercial drivers to submit medical examination certificates has been lowered from 70 to 65. We are going to introduce more examination items for this group of drivers. We will make the best use of our resources for a more comprehensive assessment. Thank you. Mr. Leung. Thank you, President. Apart from monitoring the health conditions of drivers through legislation, I think that we should encourage drivers to develop a healthy lifestyle, and we now have professional driver commendation scheme. I wonder if the government will encourage the trade to reward drivers who go for regular physical examinations. Maybe we can give them some awards so that people can identify drivers who are aware of their health conditions and those with good driving attitude. Secretary, thank you for the questions and comments. In the past, the Transport Department has been working with the taxi trade, and they do have a commendation scheme that recognize taxi drivers who perform well. And under this annual scheme, we offer discounts for physical examination. This is how we encourage taxi drivers to develop this habit of going for medical examination once every year. In the future, we will continue to expand the scope of the scheme. Second, the Department of Health has been promoting e-health. We want to encourage the members of the public to register an account under the platform. We also try to encourage people to go for annual physical checkup. Third, we are now reviewing the regulations. When a person, the age threshold for medical examination will be lowered from 70 to 65. And this is how we encourage commercial vehicle drivers to go for physical checkup once every year. Thank you. Dr. David Lam. Thank you, President. Prevention is always better than cure. Aged professional drivers may suffer from low blood pressure, hypertension, stroke, so on and so forth. I wonder if the administration will mandate professional drivers to go for chronic illness co-care pilot scheme, and will the government offer some discounts for them to join the scheme so that they go for physical checkup more often? Secretary, thank you, Dr. Lam, for the question. We want to encourage professional drivers to go for physical checkup more often. We are going to impose mandatory requirements under the legislations to require drivers to go for a physical checkup. And we do have schemes that allow people to go for chronic illness screening. We try to encourage and incentivize people to be more aware of their health conditions. We want to allow time for professional drivers to adapt to the new requirements. If we put in place too many restrictions in one go, then that will undermine the effectiveness of them. Through promotion and education and legislative amendments, we want to achieve our common targets. We will work with the trade and the medical sector to enhance road safety. Thank you. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, President. I support the question put by Reverend Peter KOON. more and more young people are suffering from chronic illnesses. So I don't think that we should impose a blanket retirement age. The government has rolled out some new requirements for local vessel operators. For operators that want to apply for licenses or renew their license, they need to participate in medical assessment and obtain a medical certificate. However, the clinics are not sufficient, and it's difficult for vessel operators to get hold of a quotas at the Transport Department office. When the new requirements for professional drivers are imposed, I wonder if the frontline medical doctors will be enough. I think that we should put in place new arrangements to make it easier for drivers and local vessel operators to obtain a medical certificate. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you for the comment. Regarding the medical fitness certificate requirements for local vessel operators, we've talked to the trade and we have gained some good experience. That's why in the fourth quarter of this year, we're going to participate in medical assessment trials. We'll work together with the trade. We're going to invite members of the commercial vehicle industry and frontline medical practitioners to take part in the trials so that we can collect feedback from the medical practitioners and drivers. On the distribution of clinics, well, for drivers aged over 65, there are some 40% of taxi and light bus driving vehicle license holders that are of that age. The Transport Department is compiling a list of medical doctors and clinics that are willing to offer medical assessment service for drivers, and we will promote such a list on our website to make it more convenient for commercial vehicle drivers so that they can go for a physical checkup more easily. Thank you. Mr. SHIU Ka-fai. Thank you, President. I believe that members of the public would support having professional drivers to go for a physical checkup. However, the medical expenses are high in Hong Kong. Should we allow them to go for checkup at grade 3A hospitals on the mainland? I think that we should ask them to check their pulse every day and report such data to the consul every day. Thank you. Secretary. We will make use of technology, definitely. As I mentioned, we are going to ask the drivers to go for reaction tests, cognitive tests. In different places, such as the mainland and South Korea, they are trialing these tests. And by the end of this year or early next year, we are going to get hold of the tools for these tests. We want commercial vehicle drivers to feel that these checkups are helpful to them. Regarding your advice, we will bring them to the expert panel to see if they are feasible. Thank you. Mr. Chen Hanpan. Thank you, President. We have to be serious about the physical checkup for aged drivers, and the expenses involved may be high. The medical assessment have to be effective, but we have to make it affordable for drivers. How will the government strike a balance? Will we learn from the mainland by making use of computer for a reaction test? If we have the government conduct these tests, then we can lower the cost. Will we leverage on transport-related fund to subsidize grassroots commercial drivers? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chan, for the suggestion. Your question has to do with the usage of innovative technology for basic screening, such as eyesight tests, hearing tests. We're going to visit some cities in the mainland to learn from their experience. We may work with tertiary institutions in Hong Kong. For franchised bus drivers, we do have tests on their tiredness, their reaction as well. So we may replicate our experience regarding resources and subsidies. As the testing tools are still in trial stage, so they may be more expensive, we'll look into whether we have the resources to offer subsidy. We will work with the Health Bureau and the Hospital Authority to leverage on the chronic illness co-care pilot scheme and the district health centers to offer advanced screening. By this, the drivers will be able to detect, say, 3 highs earlier on. As we lower the medical examination threshold to 65, they will be in better condition.
Question 2, Mr. Peter Hsu. Thank you, President. As reported, the problem of illegal workers has emerged in many industries in Hong Kong, including illegal employment involving visitors holding an endorsement of business visits, and enterprises' solicitation of business by offering a low price through channels such as cross-border e-commerce platforms, and the subsequent arrangement for the provision of services in Hong Kong by holders of an endorsement for individual visits that allows multiple entries. The situation concerned has affected the livelihood of local workers and caused unfair competition to local enterprises. In this connection, would the government inform this council: 1. Whether it has compiled statistics on the monthly number of holders of an endorsement for individual visits with unusually frequent visits to Hong Kong, such as traveling to Hong Kong for 4 to 5 weekdays a week since December last year. Whether the authorities have taken the initiative to ascertain the purpose of visiting Hong Kong. Of the number of visitors holding an endorsement for business visits who have been arrested for illegal employment in each month of the past 2 years, with a tabulated breakdown by type of employment. 2. Whether it will consider the introduction of new measures to combat illegal workers, such as implementing a reward system for reporting illegal workers, and enhancing publicity for the general public that if a service provider employs illegal workers, the customer may also have to bear criminal liability and offer compensation in case of accidents or incidents. And 3. Whether it will strengthen cooperation with the mainland authorities in combating illegal workers, including eliminating information involving traveling to Hong Kong and providing services against the law from online platforms on the mainland, removing non-compliance accounts, stepping up the penalty for offences involving illegal workers, and reminding mainland residents of the criminal liability for engaging in illegal employment in Hong Kong, so as to prevent them from mistakenly believing in erroneous information. Secretary for Security. President, the government is committed to combating illegal employment so as to protect job opportunities for the local workforce. It is a serious offense to engage in illegal employment. Illegal workers, employers, as well as aiders and abettors of illegal employment will be liable to prosecution in accordance with the Immigration Ordinance. According to the record of the Immigration Department, of the illegal workers arrested from 2023 up to August this year, around half of them were from the mainland, while the remaining included non-ethnic Chinese illegal immigrants or overstayers, and foreign domestic helpers. During the said period, about 2 in 100,000 of all mainland visitors entering Hong Kong with business visits endorsements were arrested for illegal employment, while the relevant figure for mainland visitors with multiple entry individual visit endorsements was about 1 in 100,000. In consultation with the Immigration Department, the Police Force and the Labour Department, the reply to the question raised by Mr. Peter Hsu is as follows. 1. Mainland travelers entering Hong Kong with business endorsements or multiple entry individual visit endorsements are regarded as visitors in Hong Kong. In general, visitors shall not take up any employment, whether paid or unpaid, in Hong Kong. From 2023 to August this year, the monthly average number of persons entering Hong Kong with business visit endorsements who were arrested for illegal employment was 0.7. Since the resumption and expansion of multiple entry individual visit endorsements for Shenzhen in December last year to August this year, the monthly average number of persons entering Hong Kong with such endorsements who were arrested for illegal employment was 4.1. These arrested persons were primarily engaged in work relating to the construction, catering, and retail wholesale sectors. Immigration Department has all along been performing its gatekeeping role diligently. During immigration examination, the Immigration Department will conduct individual assessment on visitors with unusually frequent visits to Hong Kong in order to identify persons with doubtful purpose of visits. Depending on circumstances, the Immigration Department will refuse the entry or shorten the stay. Where necessary, the Immigration Department will step up spot checks at control points, targeting specific groups based on intelligence. It does not maintain other breakdown figures requested in the question. Parts 2 and 3 of the question. The government has been adopting a multi-pronged strategy to combat illegal employment, including stepping up intelligence collection and strict law enforcement, increase in penalty, collaboration with the mainland authorities, as well as publicity and education. Various law enforcement agencies have been proactively collecting intelligence and conducting joint operations to raid premises suspected of having illegal employment activities. Since the third quarter and up till now, the Immigration Department has carried out 3,500 enforcement actions for combating illegal employment. The monthly average increased by around 18% over that of the second quarter. In August alone, in collaboration with other departments, the Immigration Department mounted a series of territory-wide anti-illegal worker operations during which over 1,800 locations were inspected, and a total of 173 illegal workers and 67 employers were arrested. The operations were also widely publicized to achieve a deterrent effect. The Immigration Department also conducts constant cyber patrols. It will take enforcement action by decoy operation against any person who is found using social media platforms to arrange for illegal workers to work in Hong Kong. For example, the department recently noticed through cyber patrols that some mainland photographers and makeup artists were promoting on social media platforms that they could provide services in Hong Kong. After investigation, the Immigration Department conducted enforcement actions and arrested a total of 10 persons, including 8 mainland illegal workers. Meanwhile, during the enforcement actions against illegal hire car services taken by the police since early this year, 8 illegal workers were arrested and 11 persons were alleged to have assisted illegal workers to engage in illegal employment in Hong Kong through online car-hailing platforms were arrested for offences such as conspiracy to defraud. Besides, the labour inspectors of the Labour Department will, under the power conferred by the Immigration Ordinance, continue to check the proof of identity of employees on site and records of employees kept by employers during regular workplace inspections. Suspected cases of illegal employment will be referred to law enforcement agencies for follow-up. The government amended the Immigration Ordinance in 2021 by increasing the penalty on employing prohibited employees. The maximum penalty was significantly increased from the original fine of $350,000 and 3 years imprisonment to a fine of $500,000 and 10 years imprisonment. The High Court has laid down sentencing guidelines that the employer of any illegal workers should be given an immediate custodial sentence. The Immigration Department will pay close attention to sentences imposed by the court and, where necessary, seek legal advice in considering whether to apply for a sentence review based on the case. The police and the Immigration Department have established a reciprocal notification mechanism with the relevant mainland authorities and have always maintained liaison and intelligence exchange. Under the existing mechanism, the Immigration Department will regularly pass information on mainland residents who have been convicted of criminal offences in Hong Kong, including those engaging in illegal employment, to the relevant mainland authorities. Depending on the circumstances, the mainland authorities will not issue exit endorsements to such persons for a period of 2 to 5 years in general, in order to prevent them from revisiting Hong Kong for illegal activities. In addition, if anyone is found to have allegedly arranged for illegal workers to work in Hong Kong using mainland online platforms, the Immigration Department will exchange intelligence with the mainland authorities and urge them to arrange with the relevant platforms for taking appropriate follow-up actions, such as taking down the posts involved. The government has been actively conducting publicity and education through various channels, including press conferences, social media, promotional leaflets, and so on, to enable the public to understand the criminal liability for employing illegal workers. Besides, in case of accidents involving any illegal workers, the validity of the relevant insurance policy may be affected. The Immigration Department also proactively reminds members of the public that customers may also be held criminally liable if they knowingly employ illegal workers by any service providers to offer services. Meanwhile, the department actively disseminates information on the effectiveness of the latest enforcement operations against illegal employment and the message of employing illegal workers in an offense through its official accounts of social media platforms frequently used by Hong Kong and mainland residents, such as Xiaohongshu, Weibo, and Instagram. This can facilitate easier access to the relevant information by local residents and mainland visitors. Illegal employment is an issue of public concern. Members of the public have been actively making such reports. Currently, the Immigration Department provides a dedicated reporting hotline and online reporting platform. It will explore more channels, for example, WeChat and I'm Smart application, so as to further enhance the reporting mechanism for illegal workers, and will review the effectiveness from time to time. We will continue to adopt a wider range of measures to step up efforts in combating illegal workers to protect local workforce. Thank you. Mr. Peter Hsiu. Thank you, President. Now, in April, I've met with the Director of Immigration together with the stakeholders in my constituency. We are concerned about illegal workers in Hong Kong. We are pleased to see that the Immigration Department has arrested a lot of illegal workers. But I think it would be more efficient if we stopped the source of illegal workers. For example, we should step up investigation on cases with unusually high number of visits to Hong Kong. Now, with the $3,000 reward offered to those reporting housing ordinance breaches, a lot of cases have been detected. So can we adopt the same system for rewarding the reporters of illegal workers? Secretary. President, for visitors holding multiple entry visas, if they have unusually high number of visits to Hong Kong, for example, multiple days a week, we will step up investigation. We will also observe whether they are bringing along tools of the trade with them. For these suspicious cases, we can refuse entry or shorten their stay in Hong Kong. On whether we would consider introducing reward for members of the public reporting crimes. Now, we have a lot of platforms, for example, dedicated hotline, faximile number, and also online reporting. We will also include Weibo and I'm Smart. Now, by 2025, on average, we have 800 of reports each year. The number is satisfactory. Every month, through regular inspections, which amounts to 1,500 per month, we have spread the message, and we have received a lot of reports of cases. Now, on whether we should offer financial reward to the reporters, we will have to consider the matter. But so far, the situation is satisfactory. Mr. Edward Leung. President, there is a new type of illegal workers in Hong Kong. I wonder whether the government can step up monitoring the situation. Now, the new model is in relation to the renovation business. The landlord would hire mainland renovation workers, and they would provide a place of stay to the renovation workers and have them stay in Hong Kong for 6 months to do the work for them. Now, the workers would be allowed to stay in the flats that they are renovating. Now, if there are inspections, the landlord would simply tell the authority that it's for the sake of renovating the flats. Now, will the government crack down this type of new employment model for illegal workers? Secretary. President, the criminals are using new methods to trick authorities. But they will not succeed because we are acting on intelligence. And as I mentioned, we gather intelligence through online patrol. We would identify advertisements of suspected involving illegal workers. Now, and also on inspection, we can easily check the identification documents of the workers. So through intelligence as well as identity checks, we keep tab of the evolving modus operandi in the business. Mr. Gary Chen, President, multiple entry visa is positive to our economy, so we shouldn't overreact. Now, in the past, there were a lot of parallel traders. So when there were visa holders who crossed the border for multiple times a day, then a bulb would light up. So would the government consider installing a warning system to help frontline immigration department officers step up checks? Now, thank you. Compared with the law-abiding visitors, the percentage is very low. Only 1 in 100,000 multiple entry visa holders committed crimes in Hong Kong. So like I said, we have a record of the frequency of visits by the visitors, and also the previous time the visitor visited Hong Kong. The frontline officers would be equipped with these data. In addition, they will conduct observation and inspect suspicious personnel. We can deny them entry if we found them suspicious. Mr. Brave Chen. Thank you, President. Now, the disciplinary forces have conducted thousands of inspections. These are all high-profile cases, and it serves as a deterrent. However, the services offered by illegal workers are simply too cheap. So will the government make use of AI to conduct online patrol? It is a much cheaper method to monitor advertisements of suspected criminal activities. That would even step up the deterrence effect and lower the cost. Secretary. Thank you, President. We make use of online channels, including social media platforms, to spread the message that anyone who work illegally in Hong Kong or hire illegal workers in Hong Kong will be committing a crime. So besides the traditional channels, we have dedicated personnel from the immigration department to conduct online or cyber patrol. Once suspicious advertisements are found, if the platform is run by a mainland operator, we would communicate with the operator to have the post taken down. And we will also conduct decoy operations. Some recent successes show that these methods work. Mr. Zhao Xiuchong, President, the seriousness of the situation of illegal workers in Hong Kong has hurt the rights of local workers. Some hardest hit sectors are renovation, retail, and catering. Now, the property management and security officers are the first line of defense. Now, in 2023, a working guideline has been set up with the Property Management Association, requiring the property management and requiring the government to issue work permits to renovators. However, many visitors have dodged this rule by registering as a visitor to the flat. Some landlord would even register the illegal workers as visitors and let them stay in the flat until the work is finished. So as the government step up communication with the property management sector and formulates new guidelines to more effectively prevent illegal workers to conduct illegal renovation works in residential flags. Secretary, President, we are aware of this trend. Some arrests have been made based on our enforcement actions. Now, our communication with the property management sector is deep. For example, seminars have been held to help the property management sector identify genuine visitors and illegal renovation workers pretending to be visitors. Now we have explained to them the privacy ordinance and how this purpose can be served without violating privacy. Now, unless you are very familiar with the landlord or the visitors, otherwise the security officers would always ask for the identity of the visitors and have them registered. Now, also, we can resort to common sense. If they are renovation workers, they would be carrying around renovation tools and also construction materials. So if these suspicious situations are observed, security officers can contact the police because we have the power to enforce the law. Thank you. Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, President. Secretary, in the reply, you mentioned that in early this year, in the enforcement actions against illegal hire car services, 11 persons alleged to have assisted illegal workers to engage in illegal employment in Hong Kong through online car-hailing platforms were arrested. Also, 8 illegal workers were arrested. Now, last year, there was a media report that some cross-boundary vehicles with registration mark starting with FU or FV engaged in illegal hire car services in Hong Kong. I asked the government why weren't the identities of the drivers were confirmed upon entry into Hong Kong to see whether the drivers are really registered drivers for the cars. Now, the reply was that the immigration department was not empowered to conduct this check. Now, by the end of this year, the more mainland cars will be allowed to come to Hong Kong. So, of course, I support this move, but I'm worried that this situation of illegal hire car services conducted by illegal workers would get more serious. So will the Secretary discuss with the Transport and Logistics Bureau that some preventive measures should be added in the bill and empower law enforcement agencies, including the Immigration Department, to check whether the drivers are bound with the registered car. If not, they should not be allowed entry. Secretary. Thank you, President. Of course, we are aware of the suggestions made by Mr. Frankie Yik. Now, there are 2 offenses committed by this type of offenders. First, unlawful hire of vehicles, and second, illegal employment. So we have been discussing with the Transport and Logistics Bureau on how we can do better on this. Now, Immigration Department is responsible for immigration security. If more checks have to be done, then the efficiency of custom clearance may be affected. But we are discussing on the premises of not affecting our efficiency and facilitating law-abiding visitors. How can we better identify these personnel? Thank you.
Question 3, Mr. Shang Hailong. Thank you, President. It has been reported that a government department was recently found to have serious oversights and deficiencies in implementing its procurement process. There are views that the incident reflects the government's failure to exercise rigorous supervision at the implementation level. In this connection, will the government inform this Council 1. How it will tighten supervision of government departments' procurement processes to ensure strict adherence to procurement guidelines, whether it will introduce more frequent third-party audits or digital monitoring systems to promptly identify and rectify anomalies in procurement processes. 2. When reviewing the existing procurement processes, whether it will consider optimizing aspects such as contract management, supply performance evaluation, and price quality balancing mechanisms. Introducing more flexible and competitive procurement models, such as electronic tendering or dynamic pricing systems, and enhancing the transparency of procurement information, such as regularly submitting summaries of government departments' procurement contracts and supplier ratings to this council, so that this council can more effectively monitor the procurement processes. And 3, whether it will formally clear operational guidelines on procurement for public organizations such as the Hospital Authority and the Hong Kong Housing Authority, and provide regular training and technical support to reduce procurement issues arising from errors in implementation details. Thank you, President. Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President, government bureaus and departments procure a wide variety of goods and services ranging from common goods and professional items such as pharmaceuticals and testing equipment to service contracts such as management of elderly homes and street cleansing. In light of social concerns over recent individual government procurement exercises, the question raised by Mr. Shang Hailong provides a good opportunity for me to expand on the government procurement regime. 1. The government's procurement policy is to obtain goods and services at the best value for money through fair, open, and competitive procurement procedures. Meanwhile, the Stores and Procurement Regulations, or SPR for short, and relevant circulars settle the procurement framework and provide detailed guidelines on procurement procedures. Indeed, not all government procurement exercises are handled by the GLD Government Logistics Department. In general, the GLD supplies commonly used items to departments and procures goods for departments at a value exceeding $10 million, whereas respective departments are responsible for procuring services as well as goods at lower value. When conducting procurement, public officers should strictly follow the SPRs and relevant circulars. Controlling officers of the departments also have the responsibility to remind officers under the purview to comply with the relevant regulations and closely monitor their compliance. The prevailing procurement regime has put in place checks and balances with clear segregation of responsibilities and well-defined workflow to safeguard procurement processes. As far as the procurement of goods and services is concerned, departments formulate procurement requirements in accordance with their operational needs and tender assessment panels, TAPs, evaluate tender submissions and recommend a tender for acceptance. TAP's recommendation is subject to further evaluation by tender committees chaired by directorate officers of the departments. Depending on the contract value, procurement exercises at a higher value may warrant scrutiny by the GLD Tender Board or the Central Tender Board to ensure compliance. In addition, we have put in place other measures to monitor departments' procurement work. At present, departments should conduct biannual self-assessments to enhance staff awareness of compliance with procurement regulations and strengthen self-monitoring. At the third-party audit, the GLD has also set up a dedicated team to conduct random on-site inspection of departments' procurement records from time to time. In the past 3 years, the GLD has inspected more than 100 procurement cases per year on average and suggested improvement measures for specific cases. We acknowledge the importance of continuously enhancing the professional knowledge and execution abilities of procurement staff. Therefore, the GLD regularly organizes seminars and training courses. In the past 3 years, the GLD has organized more than 20 training activities with over 1,600 attendances. We're also committed to fostering digitalization. The government's digitalized tendering system, commissioned starting from 2009, gradually enables suppliers to access tender notices, download tender documents, make tender submissions, and access notices of contract awarded, etc. online. We'll continue to move with the times and explore the introduction of technology in procurement work or monitoring procedures, thereby further enhancing efficiency. We attach much importance to the quality of goods and services procured by the government. We review and enhance procurement arrangements from time to time. The Interdepartmental Task Force chaired by myself is now conducting a holistic review. As regards the aspects brought up by Mr. Shang, we have adopted some key measures. We have been maintaining the high transparency of procurement information online. The public can access tender notices, contract award information, major procurement forecasts, and standard contract terms online. The task force convened its first meeting in late August. It will put forward enhancement proposals with a focus on aspects such as due diligence, tender requirements, contract management, and quality assurance. In relation to the third question raised by Mr. Shang, public organizations such as the Hong Kong Housing Authority and the Hospital Authority have introduced procurement regulations or guidelines for their staff to follow. They have organized regular training courses. We will share our best practices with public organizations from time to time in order to ensure the proper use of public resources. Thank you, President. Mr. Shang Hailong. Thank you, President. I have to thank the Secretary for elaborating on the government procurement regime. In the main reply, the task force has already convened its first meeting in late August. It will focus on a few areas such as due diligence, tender requirements, and so on. The media and the members of the public have identified some issues. Some suppliers are problematic. There were cases in which some companies have changed their names and they can submit yet another tender once again. The government should conduct due diligence in order to prevent similar incidents from happening again. Secretary. Thank you, President. As we announced earlier, the task force is formed to review the tender processes. As Mr. Chang mentioned just now, after procurement processes or in the middle of procurement exercises, they should seek ways to liaise with the relevant departments in a more effective manner. In recent incidents, a few government departments are involved, so moving ahead at the government level, we will monitor the dissemination and sharing of information among different departments in the government. Individual departments are working on different procurement exercises. However, when it comes to the dissemination and sharing of information, we encourage doing so in a more effective manner. And I believe this is exactly one of the directions required by the Chief Executive. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Falk. Thank you, President. The Secretary just now said that not all government procurement exercises are handled by the GLD. I understand this. I'd like to ask about the procurement exercises of the LCSD. In the main reply, the Secretary said that we focus on quality and we make sure there is good value for money in the procurement of Chinese books. The rating of suppliers has been removed. Price is the only factor at play. In other words, the lowest bid wins, and this caused damage to the ecosystem of publishers. We need to draw reference from our country. We shouldn't encourage the principle of the lowest bid wins. I hope that the Secretary will relate this situation to the administration. Thank you. I thank Mr. Kenneth Falk for expressing his concerns over government procurement exercises. Just now, Mr. Kenneth Falk talked about the LCSD, in particular the procurement of books in the libraries. And I believe there are commonalities in these exercises. It is said that we don't have a marking scheme in our government procurement exercises, hence the quality is compromised. But in fact, we haven't identified this situation. Even though there is no marking scheme, We do take into account other factors, such as any electronic receipts, any samples, any list. We have turned these criteria on the marking scheme into basic technical requirements. In other words, no matter how low the cost is, if the technical requirements are not met, we won't award the contract to the bidder. So definitely it is not the case that the lowest bid wins. Price is not the only factor in our consideration. Just now, member talked about other government procurement exercises or any other experience that we can share with others. This is definitely on the agenda of our task force. I thank members for expressing their concerns over this issue. Mr. Peter Shiu. Thank you, President. We should focus on value for money when it comes to government procurement exercises. Recently, there are much controversies over government procurement. Recently, we learned from a restaurant that it had been awarded the tender in recent years. And in fact, there are subsidiaries or hundreds of subsidiaries under this parent company. The subsidiary is barred from submitting tenders, but in fact, this subsidiary didn't breach any violation. However, for new companies, owing to the absence of record, they are successfully in getting contracts. I think the Secretary should look into the situation. Secretary. Thank you. Well, I think that members should relate the situation to us as early as possible so that we can look into these situations in general. I'm not going to comment on individual situations or incidents. In this aspect, we have already liaised with the relevant companies. In our task force, we will also be discussing the criteria or factors in our government procurement exercises. Thank you, Mr. Michael Tien. The Secretary said that the marking scheme isn't suitable for all cases. I agree with this. We have a fiscal deficit. Efficiency does matter. However, when we are changing from one system to another, there shouldn't be one director that is responsible for making decisions in the purchase of water. In this incident, well, I think that we need to consider reviewing the system so that there won't be the situation in which one principal officer makes the decision. Secretary, thank you. Members' views are very helpful in the work of the task force. In the past, we have marking schemes. There was a change in the system, but then it doesn't affect our gatekeeping of the system. Regarding concrete implementation, we do have a mechanism to keep the gate. We have different criteria for government procurement, say the GLD, or for departments above or bureaus above the GLD. There are much concerns over the procurement of water by the government. I understand there are different concerns among members, and we do have the determination to sort out the situation. I chair the task force. It's an interdepartmental task force. Well, you can see that there are representatives from the FSTB and the GLD, and there are also representatives from the CSB and the CEDB, as well as the DOJ. This is because we want to conduct a holistic review of the government procurement regime. We also want to address the situation squarely, and we are conducting relevant work in this regard. The Audit Commission is also looking into the situation. I thank members for your questions. Regarding the concerns of Mr. Marcoutian, please rest assured we have a mechanism and we do have a framework in this regard. Thank you. Mr. Tung Li-tse. Thank you, President. In the main reply of the Secretary, it talks about making good use of public funds. Just now we talked about self-assessments. Under the GLD, there are also random checks to identify room for improvement. Regarding public organizations, as mentioned by the Secretary, public organizations devise and introduce their respective procurement regulations or guidelines. Does the administration conduct any random checks on public organizations to identify room for improvement? Then the task force may encourage other departments to follow up on these inadequacies. Thank you. Secretary. Public organizations have their own respective procurement regulations and guidelines. There are random checks. In fact, as I mentioned, public organizations have devised their own procurement regulations or guidelines. They also have their own self-assessment methods to ensure the proper use of public resources and public funds. Public organizations have controlling officers as well, and they are held accountable to legislators as well. That is actually a means to ensure the proper use of public resources. In other words, regarding internal procedures, public organizations have their own procurement regulations, and controlling officers also need to make sure that public resources are used in a proper manner. Thank you. Ms. Carmen Khan. We need to be open. As the Secretary answered members' questions, well, if the situation is really that ideal, I don't believe that we need to conduct any further review. But as a member on the Public Accounts Committee, we have identified quite a lot of issues in relation to number 9 of financial circulars in 2004. Government tender documents need to be legally binding. In relation to the drinking water incident, we have found that there is no requirement for due diligence. The director also told us that the procurement of goods is different from that of services. When it comes to the procurement of goods, due diligence is not required. In relation to government procurement below the amount of $10 million, I'd like to know for exercises over $60 million, is there any requirement for third-party checks? Secretary, I thank Ms. Carmen Khan for sharing with us her views. We conduct a holistic review of the government procurement regime, and we also identify room for improvement of the government procurement regime. We aren't sugarcoating the situation. We're being pragmatic, and I was just elaborating on the government procurement regime. In fact, we have identified the situation and we need to enhance the vigilance of the task force. We will also be making efforts to improve the situation based on what Ms. Carmen Ken has just now mentioned. Thank you.
Question for Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, President. According to the statistics of mid-year population for 2025 by the Census and Statistics Department, Hong Kong's overall population has shown slight growth thanks to the measures on talent attraction. On the other hand, people are concerned about the integration of immigrations and the related issues of social resource allocation. In this connection, will the government inform this Council, 1, of the number of people who came to Hong Kong as dependents under various talent admission schemes in each of the past 3 years and this year to date, whether the authorities have projected the potential increase in population in the coming years as a result of such schemes. 2. As it is learned that in recent years, hundreds of thousands of immigrants have come to Hong Kong through various talent admission schemes, of the measures put in place by the authorities to coordinate policies and supporting arrangements in areas such as education, healthcare, housing and employment to meet the needs of both local and immigration populations. Whether tracking surveys and analysis of admitted talents will be strengthened to optimize the effectiveness of these schemes. And 3. Whether when formulating indicators for a new round of admission policies, whether the government will consider the overall impact of these schemes on the population structure and formulate policy planning and allocate public resources from a high-level and macro perspective. If so, of the details, if not reasons for that. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. President. The Census and Statistics Department CNSD prepares new population projection every 5 years to work out the trend of change in Hong Kong's population in the projection period so as to provide a basis for the government's planning in various policy areas and resource allocation. To tackle challenges in manpower demand brought by an aging population, the government implemented in the end of 2022 a package of measures to proactively draw for talents from around the world. In recent years, these talents gradually arrived here, with some bringing along their families to settle here. This has offset the impact of natural population wastage and effectively alleviating the problems caused by a persistently low local birth rate and an aging population. The population in mid-2025 has increased by over 180,000 compared to mid-2022. In addition, these incoming talents has reversed the decline in the local labor force during the pandemic. The majority of them are in the prime years of their careers, which enriches the local talent pool and enhances Hong Kong's competitiveness. Hong Kong ranked first in Asia in the World Talent Ranking published yesterday by the International Institute for Management Development, leaping to 4th globally from 9th last year, marking the highest ever ranking. This is clear evidence that the series of talent attraction measures of the current term government are in the right direction and yielding significant results. In consultation with the Education Bureau, EDB, Health Bureau, HHB, Housing Bureau, CNSD, and the Immigration Department, my reply to the question is as follows. 1. As at the end of August 2025, the talent admission schemes have attracted over 230,000 people to Hong Kong. Some brought along their spouses and unmarried dependent children under the age of 18. Nearly 220,000 individuals have arrived as dependents under the talent admission schemes since 2023. A breakdown of the figures by talent admission scheme is at Annex. The Labour and Welfare Bureau, LWB, and the CNSD published the latest manpower projection and population projection in 2024 and 2023. These projections have taken into account the impact of major admission schemes. The LWB is now conducting a midterm update of the manpower projection, which will comprehensively assess the implications of the latest global and local developments, including the government's latest manpower policies and measures on the manpower situation in 2028. Results are expected to be released in the 4th quarter of 2026. The CNSD will conduct a population census in 2026 to obtain up-to-date benchmark information of the population. When the census results become available, the CNSD will update the population projection upon integrating the available data on fertility, mortality, and population movement with the prevailing policy factors. 2 and 3. Currently, population policy measures have been subsumed under the portfolios of bureaus as part of the ongoing efforts. The bureaus regularly review the implementation and effectiveness of the measures under their purview, working with other bureaus to formulate and implement measures in response to the latest social, demographic, and manpower conditions. For instance, the EDB will review education policies from time to time to meet the needs of society. The HHB will deepen the reform of healthcare system, including strengthening health promotion and disease prevention in primary healthcare, implementing reform on fees and charges of the public sector, as well as enhancing price transparency of the private sector, and encourage better use of medical insurance to ensure the viability of our healthcare system. The Housing Bureau will continuously monitor the supply and demand of different types of housing and make adjustments. The Chief Executive, Secretaries and Deputy Secretaries of departments provide high-level steer as necessary through different channels such as committees, working groups, and interdepartmental meetings to coordinate interdepartmental collaboration in light of changes in our demography and manpower situation in different industries, continuously review the implementation of different measures, and make timely adjustments so as to meet our economic and social development needs. As regards manpower planning, the government will enhance measures on local training, talent attraction and retention in response to trends of social development and manpower demand, and set key performance indicators. In fact, the government has been collecting information on the employment situation on talents upon their first entry and at the time of their application for extension of stay. The Hong Kong Talent Engage under our Bureau also maintains close contact with incoming talents to keep track of their development and needs in Hong Kong through online and offline channels and provide support services. In respect of the Top Talent Pass Scheme, TTPS, launched by the current term of government, our Bureau invites applicants to participate in follow-up surveys when the Immigration Department issues visa for extension of stay in order to gather information on areas such as housing and education of dependent children. The first round of findings of the surveys and the situation of extension of stay were released last month. Our Bureau will continue to keep in view the settlement of incoming talents through various channels and use the information as reference for the ongoing enhancements of policies and services. Mr. Kenneth Leung. The main reply mentioned about manpower, population policies being subsumed under the work of different bureaus. The Immigration Department and the Hong Kong Talent Engage collect information. Do they disseminate the information to different bureaus for their reference? Is there a standing mechanism to lead and coordinate to find out the needs of incoming talents in order to cater measures to meet these needs? Secretary, thank you for the question. The Immigration Department, the Hong Kong Talent Engage, and the LWB collect information on incoming talent on different areas. We share the information with different departments and bureaus to make sure that they are well informed and that they can take into account the latest situation when formulating policies. When it comes to high-level steer, well, we have Education and Technology Talent Committee led by the Chief Secretary. This is the highest level steering of the government in terms of incoming talents. Mr. Tik Chi-yuen. In the main reply, it says that there are 220,000 individuals that are dependents. Many of them are school-age children. The Secretary said that the Education Bureau will review education policies from time to time to meet the needs of society. It's a very simple reply. I'd like to say this. The education sector is concerned about shrinking of number of classes. Will there be any alleviating effect brought by the dependents coming to Hong Kong? Have you noticed any difference? Secretary, I thank the member for its question. We have successfully attracted a large number of incoming talents thanks to these admission schemes. Many of them have brought their spouses and dependents under the age of 18 with them. If they are school-age children, of course, it will help with the drop in student population in Hong Kong. Our bureau doesn't have much information. I will forward Dr. Dick's question to the relevant bureau for a further reply. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Among these dependents coming to Hong Kong, some of them are of work age. If we can make good use of them, they will replenish our labor force. However, if they take up jobs where there is no manpower shortage, given our increasing unemployment rate, it will affect the employment opportunities of the local population, say, for example, those who have just graduated from universities. Is there a tracking survey so that we can effectively make adjustments when there are changes in our manpower situation in particular sectors? Secretary, according to the latest survey information of TTPS, about 28% of the spouses of main applicants have found a job. That is, less than 30% of the spouses have found a job. Median income is about $30,000, which means that they take up middle management or above posts. But that is a very low figure. That means we still are in great need of people of higher education background who can fill middle to senior management posts to work here. There is a need. Mr. Tony Tse. In a reply, the Secretary said that when it comes to resource planning, the government will take into account the local situation, enhance local training, measures to attract and retain talents will have KPIs set in addition to that. Are there any overlapping of incoming talents that are of areas where we already have a rich pool of talents, say for example INT? This factor, has it been taken into account when the government make adjustments in the admission schemes? Thank you for the question. There are two major areas of our admission schemes. One, such as TTPS, we use the talents as the key factor. We attract them to come to Hong Kong first. The other one is based on jobs. That's why we have the talent lists, so that sectors with an acute manpower shortage can have talents coming to Hong Kong. Well, there are about 17% of talents working in the INT sector. We don't have that many people working in the same sector. That means the incoming talents have helped us. Of course, there are some other incoming talents working in our conventional, traditional industries, say for example, commerce and finance. We do need their help because they boost our labor force. Well, we have an increasing number of people coming to Hong Kong. The latest is about 53,000 people so far this year. Previously, there was 89,000 and 77,000. They have needs in terms of housing, transportation, education. People are concerned that they may be competing for public resources with the local population, but that is not the case because we can leave it to the market to work that out. We can get advanced information from the incoming talents instead of waiting for them to apply for an extension of stay. The information I gave was in relation to the TTPS. We have additional information as well. When incoming talents handle their applications, we know whether they will be bringing spouses and dependent children with them. In addition, we have questionnaires to collect additional information. Of course, we can make advanced planning. We'll try to do our work as best as we can. Mr. Porter. In the annex of the main reply, there is one figure that I would like further explanation. In 23-24, or as at August this year, under the TTPS, we have 36,000, 48,000, and 28,000 in these years. But there is another column. Admission scheme for the second generation of Chinese Hong Kong permanent residents. The number is amazingly low, that is 6, 7, and 0 in the past 3 years. And this is a very unfamiliar scheme. Why is the figure so low? Is it because it's unappealing? There is a lack of publicity? That's why people don't know about it? Secretary. In relation to the admission scheme for the second generation of Chinese Hong Kong permanent residents, it is not under the purview of our Bureau. In short, they are the offsprings of Hong Kong permanent residents but are not born here. They may be living in Europe. Over a long period of time, we have been receiving a very small amount of applications. Well, they are offsprings of people who are or were Hong Kong permanent residents. Mr. Tan Yue Hang. For incoming talents to genuinely integrate into Hong Kong, it is very important for them to find a place to study or a job. And there are also issues relating to identification with local culture. But we can't rely on this support of a government office to achieve that. We need different sectors of our society to accept them. Will you draw reference from overseas experience to enhance support measures to incoming talents so that there will be a comprehensive package, including support on understanding of the language, values, culture, in addition to other information, so as to help incoming talents to integrate into the Hong Kong society. Secretary. The direction you mentioned is actually in line with what we're doing. The Hong Kong talent engage as well as their partners provide support to incoming talents to integrate. The services include helping them with Cantonese, understanding of the local culture. I do agree that we can't rely on just one single office. Well, that we have organized a number of Cantonese courses for them. There are also organizations of activities to help them integrate into the mainstream of Hong Kong society. We have volunteer services. I think, if they are living in Hong Kong already, it will really help their parents integrate. Mr. Porter, I ask for further explanation of another figure. Well, the TTPS was launched in 2022. As at the end of last year, it was its 2-year anniversary. There are about 13,678 people will have to apply for an extension. 7,394 of them apply for an extension. The successful rate is about 94%, which is quite good. However, close to half of the people who have come to Hong Kong simply give up. Why? Why do they waste the opportunity to have their visa extended? Or is it the case that there is a there is a lackluster effort to vet the application. That's why half of them don't want to stay. The design of the TTPS is one that's based on talents. We want to attract high salary talents to come to Hong Kong to explore their career opportunities. They may not stay. But looking at the latest figures of extension, we think that the result meets our expectations. It's satisfactory. Just over 1 out of 2 people under the TTPS have found a job, found their career opportunities, and have applied for an extension. We'll try to find out why about 40% of talents not apply for an extension. Maybe they have decided to go to another place, or they found a job somewhere else. We'll see via what channels we can obtain credible and sizable information. We will work on that. Hopefully we'll have more information to share with you next time. Mr. Johnny Ng. The government has been publishing information of a number of applicants under the various schemes, say for example the TTPS. Well, will they release information in relation to the economic figures, say for example the number of startups, the tax they paid, to prove that the scheme is successful? Secretary, I thank the member for the question. Looking at the latest figures of extensions, if we look at the income, well, the applicants receive an immediate income of 40,000. About a quarter of them have a salary of about 80,000. The contribution to our GDP, we reckon that they generate about $30 billion, which is about 1.5% of our GDP. We'll continue to collect information. In the second half of this year and the first half of next year will be the peak of application for extensions. Soon, about 20,000 of them will expire. In the coming year, there will be another 20,000 that will expire. We will collect more information and share with you.
Question number 5, Ms. Chan Hoi-yan. It is learned that the Hospital Authority is developing the rare diseases database by referencing the mainland's national lists of rare diseases, which contains 207 rare disease entries, so as to facilitate the identification of the patients and retrieval of the clinical records. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, whether it knows, according to the definitions under the HA's rare diseases database, the number of cases in which rare disease patients attend the accident and emergency departments of public hospitals for treatment in each of the past 5 years, and among the cases, the number involving relapses or deterioration of the diseases, and the number of patients concerned, as well as the top 5 rare diseases with the highest number of attendances, whether it has compiled statistics on the longest and median time taken from patients arriving at the A&E departments to receive treatment. 2, whether it knows how HA's healthcare staff make use of the rare diseases database to assist in the diagnosis and treatment of rare disease patients in terms of clinical applications, in particular, those patients seeking treatment without scheduled appointments due to relapses or deterioration. And 3, given that irreversible damage could be caused to patients suffering from certain diseases with high relapse rates, such as neuromyelitis optica, if timely treatment is not administered, whether the government knows HA will set up a multi-specialty expert panel to regularly review treatment protocols and procedures for handling patients concerned by the A&E departments, as well as to formulate the relevant clinical guidelines and define the golden hours for treatment so as to expedite diagnosis and treatment for such patients. Secretary for Health. President, in consultation with the hospital authority, the consolidated reply to the questions raised by Ms. Chan is as follows. The government and HA attach great importance to providing optimal care for all patients, including those with rare diseases. There is no common definition of rare diseases worldwide. To enhance clinical diagnostic support for patients with rare diseases and improve clinical diagnostic capabilities, the hospital authority has developed the Rare Diseases Database by referencing the mainland's national lists of rare diseases, which contains 207 rare disease entries. The HA's Clinical Management System, or CMS, maintains clinical data for all patients, including those with rare diseases, alongside information on various disease categories. When providing treatment for patients with rare diseases covered under the lists, doctors will put in the relevant diagnosis codes in the consultation records in the CMS to identify those receiving treatment for rare diseases and provide appropriate care accordingly. As the HA accumulates more local experience in treating rare diseases and the relevant clinical data, the database of rare disease patients in the CMS will become more extensive, providing important reference data for healthcare service planning as well as clinical diagnosis and treatment. As at the 30th of June 2025, the HA's CMS has recorded all 207 diseases listed in the mainland's national list of rare diseases, with a total of about 63,600 cases. According to statistics from the hospital authority, the 5 types of rare diseases with the highest number of patients in Hong Kong are, in the order of prevalence, gastrointestinal stromal tumor, generalized myasthenia gravis, retinopathy of maturity, hereditary hypomagnesemia, and polycythemia vera. Most of these rare diseases patients can be managed through outpatient follow-ups, with only a small number requiring hospitalization. Where patients are required to attend the A&E department due to medical needs, healthcare staff will provide appropriate treatment based on the clinical conditions. The primary challenge in dealing with rare diseases lie in the difficulty in diagnosis for many of such diseases. Symptoms of rare diseases are often atypical and non-specific, frequently resembling common ailments. Additionally, these symptoms may affect multiple organ systems, leading patients to consult various medical specialties without obtaining a comprehensive understanding of their condition. Apart from clinical examinations, patients are also required to undergo multiple testings, such as genome sequencing, thereby prolonging diagnostic process. For certain hereditary rare diseases, such as osteogenesis imperfecta and X-linked hypophosphatemia, the Department of Clinical Genetics of the HA provides one-stop cross-disciplinary support for patients with genetic disorders, including rare diseases and their families, in line with the latest developments in genomic medicine in Hong Kong. Patients who are affected or suspected to be affected by various genetic diseases and other rare diseases, as well as their families, will be referred to the Department of Clinical Genetics of Hong Kong Children's Hospital for a one-stop follow-up, including assessment, testing, diagnosis, treatment, counseling, and prevention services. Adhering to the principle of providing holistic care for patients, the HA has been adopting an integrated service model in providing holistic medical and rehab services to patients with rare diseases through multidisciplinary and interdepartmental medical and rehab teams comprising doctors, nurses, pharmacists, clinical psychologists, rehabilitation specialty nurses, physiotherapists, dietitians, occupational therapists, speech therapists, prosthetists, orthotists, medical social workers, etc. In addition, the Hong Kong Genome Institute launched the Hong Kong Genome Project in 2021, covering rare diseases associated with genomics and precision medicine, such as mucopolysaccharidosis and Marfan syndrome. Eligible patients and their family members are recruited through public hospitals to undergo whole genome sequencing on a voluntary basis. The sequencing results assist the professionals in making precise diagnosis and provide key basis for assessment. The government will continue to advance the initiative in developing prevention medicine. Regarding neuromyelitis optica, NMO, as mentioned in the question, it is an extremely rare autoimmune disorder of the central nervous system in which the immune system of the patient attacks the optic nerves and spinal cord, causing optic neuritis and transverse myelitis. As a result, patients are typically managed by eye doctors and neurologists. Joint consultations will be arranged as needed along with investigations so as to provide treatment. In cases where patients need to attend A&E department due to relapses, they will undergo initial assessment and triage by nurses under the prevailing system. The treatment priority is determined on the severity of their condition to ensure that the patients with most urgent medical needs can receive prompt diagnosis. The service targets stipulate that all critically ill patients 100% are to receive immediate treatment, while those classified as emergency or urgent will be prioritized for treatment upon arrival at the A&E, with targets being that most of the critical or 95% or urgent 90% of patients are to be treated within 15 and 30 minutes respectively. Generally speaking, patients experiencing symptoms such as acute vision loss or focal neurological deficits will be triaged as urgent cases. The A&E department aims to arrange the patients to receive treatment and assessment within 30 minutes. If need be, the A&E department will refer the patient to the Department of Ophthalmology for further follow-up, including blood tests, CT scans as necessary to rule out other conditions that may cause the same symptoms. After assessment, patients may be referred to the appropriate specialist outpatient clinics for treatment and follow-up or hospitalization subject to their clinical conditions. Ms. Chan Hoi-yan. Well, the government started by saying that the government and HA attach great importance to providing optimal care to all patients, including those with rare diseases. I appeal to the government to attach importance on equal basis to the electrical member's question, because in the main reply, the government did not respond to the first and second parts to my question, including statistics relating to the A&E departments as well as the waiting time. I am deeply dissatisfied with the administration's reply. Now, my question is this. If there is acute vision loss among NMO patients, which is an autoimmune disorder, there'll be an attack on the vision acuity of the patient itself. Now, if, like the secretary said, the patient needs to wait at the A&E for as long as 30 minutes, and in fact, I came across such a case that the steroid wasn't applied until 1 day later, and this will cause total damage to the vision of the patient. So my question is whether you make use of the database and consider the way forward. For example, the A&E process should be improved such that the green channel can be provided for patients with rare diseases, and that we can make full use of the rare diseases database developed. Secretary, President, first of all, I emphasize that I have provided a clear answer to Ms. Chan's question. There are different types of rare diseases. For most of these rare diseases, as I mentioned, they come in great varieties, and I also cited the 5 types of rare diseases with the highest number of patients in Hong Kong. Now, at the initial stage, we need a multidisciplinary team to provide accurate diagnosis for rare diseases. And very rarely do we see patients with rare diseases go into an A&E department. Now, you mentioned a patient with an NMO, neuromyelitis optica. In fact, we rely on the clinical management system of the HA, which clearly shows the condition suffered by the patient. The patient may also tell the doctor in question about the NMO. Now, for acute vision loss, as I mentioned, there are 3 major categories at the A&E department, and 90% of these patients will receive diagnosis or assessment within 30 minutes on arrival. Now, you mentioned a patient receiving treatment only after a day or so. I need to explain the following. Now, the healthcare professionals will exercise their own judgment and clinical knowledge in providing diagnosis for a patient. Even for a patient with the record of neurological deficits, a doctor will have to be careful before giving the diagnosis of NMO-induced vision loss again. Usually, at the A&E, the ophthalmologist will be summoned to provide suitable clinical assessments. Now, there are different causes for acute vision loss, such as glaucoma and retinal detachment, or problem with the arteries of the retina. The eye doctor cannot just assume that this is animal related because of the symptoms. When it comes to treatment and the application of steroid, arrangement will have to be made. So it has nothing to do with the waiting time at the A&E department. Next, Professor Chan Wing-kwong. Now, I think it's common knowledge that Chinese medicine has great efficacy for treating certain rare diseases such as generalized myasthenia gravis. Now, in fact, it's less costly. It comes with fewer side effects. In the mainland, we have recorded a number of successful treatment cases. However, it is not widely applied in Hong Kong. My question is whether the government will make better use of the Chinese medicine sector in Hong Kong to provide treatment for rare diseases, or integrated Western Chinese medicine approach, so that we can give full play to the potential of Chinese medicine in providing help for patients with rare diseases. Secretary. Well, when considering patients with rare diseases, we provide treatment on the basis of empirical evidence. Now, I welcome services provided by the Chinese medicine sector as long as this is backed by scientific evidence. And this is, of course, one topic that we can look into when we consider integrating Western and Chinese medicine. Ms. Elizabeth Quad. Thank you, President. The government attaches great importance to providing optimal care to patients with rare diseases. I'm happy to learn that now I understand that there are some 60,000 patients with rare disease in Hong Kong. What is the most important part is to provide the accurate diagnosis, and for some hereditary diseases, diagnosis could be given as for newborns as well. Well, yesterday I met with a group of children with achondroplasia and their parents. Because of this genetic mutation, they have problem of converting the cartilages to proper bone structure. Their growth and development are affected. I understand that it could be resolved through surgical means, only that it would bring great pain to the children. And starting from 2021, target drugs became available, and that the problem is there is a golden period for treatment. When one is about 14 or 16, this drug will no longer be useful. Now, the mainland government provides subsidy for using these drugs, and so far 45 countries have done the same. Even in Taiwan, in May this year, they started to provide subsidies, and yet this is not happening in Hong Kong. Now, this is causing great pain to the patients. Either they are forced to go under the knife, or there will be no help. Now, as the government is attaching great importance to patients with rare diseases, will the government introduce this new drug into Hong Kong as quickly as possible, so that our children can have a normal development? Thank you for the questions. Indeed, because of technological advancements and medical breakthroughs, many diseases are now curable. There are treatments, and yet we need to collect sufficient empirical data to support the efficacy of this treatment. That means we need to conduct clinical trials, and we need to conduct cost-benefit assessment as well. The HA will closely monitor the development of new drugs and new treatment for diseases, including rare diseases. That means we need to look at the R&D data as well as clinical data. There is a mechanism to assess the efficacy of new drugs and devices for inclusion into the drug register. We need to make sure that we can catch up with the latest developments in terms of clinical services and the efficacy of new drugs. So to answer your question, we have healthcare professionals conducting assessments for inclusion of these new drugs into the safety net. Ms. Connie Lam. Secretary, I'm really grateful for your saying that the government attaches great importance to treating patients with rare diseases. According to the main reply, most of these rare diseases could be followed up at the outpatient clinics, and if need be, when these patients attend the A&E department, they can be provided with suitable treatment based on the clinical conditions. But according to the cases that I have come across, when these patients attend the A&E department, they don't receive treatment within 30 minutes, such as NMO patients. There are 300 such patients in Hong Kong. Like the Secretary said, well, the ophthalmologists, neurologists in HA could provide assistance, but after all, they may not be familiar with treating this disease. So there are 7 clusters in Hong Kong. At least dedicated clinics should be set up across the territory so that doctors familiar with neuromyelitis optica will be able to provide treatment to NMO patients at these clinics, so that we don't have ladies of my age suddenly suffering from acute vision loss or loss of mobility. Secretary, now I want to correct a statement you just made. You mentioned receiving treatment within 30 minutes at the A&E department, and that's not true. We're talking about starting consultation within 30 minutes for treatment. Now, like what I said in the previous reply, we need to ensure that the acute vision loss is caused by a relapse of the NMO condition instead of other possible causes such as retinal detachment or glaucoma. So this is the responsibility of the eye doctor. The case has to be confirmed before treatment is provided. As for treatment of rare diseases, especially rare diseases that may affect multiple organ systems, we have interdisciplinary professional teams comprising doctors of different specialties, such as ophthalmology, neurology, physiotherapy, etc. For patients suffering from optic neuritis and transverse myelitis, your suggestion is to have a team attached to the A&E to provide round-the-clock assistance. I don't think this is the most feasible option. We set up a team to provide diagnosis and a treatment plan. At the A&E department, we also have A&E doctors providing help round the clock. As for patients having received a diagnosis, depending on the vision problem, the ophthalmologist may be summoned to provide a suitable treatment. Mr. Andrew Lam. According to the main reply, CMS has recorded about 63,600 cases. And there is also one-stop service to support patients with rare diseases, including referral to the Hong Kong Children's Hospital for follow-up. Now, I have come across a lot of cases in which patients only experience symptoms after entering adulthood. So among the 63,600 cases, how many of them are adult patients? And how do they receive help through the interdisciplinary system you mentioned? Right, for the rare diseases, according to the National List of Rare Diseases, there are altogether 207 rare disease entities. Now, they come in great varieties. For the most common rare diseases, they include hereditary and autoimmune disorders, as well as other rare tumors diseases. So we need to take different approaches in terms of diagnosis and treatments. As the member mentioned, some are hereditary diseases that can be diagnosed as a newborn. As for some others, they suffer serious symptoms and they may pass away before the disease is diagnosed. There are also some adult patients suffering from, for example, PD deficiency. They may not have an onset throughout their lives. You mentioned patients with symptoms onset after entering adulthood. We need to consider the most common rare diseases. These patients might have gone along the healthcare chain and receive referral only after a long time.
Last question seeking an oral reply. Professor Chan Wing-kwong. Regarding the development of telemedicine services, will the government inform this council? 1. As it is learned that HA, the hospital authority, provides telemedicine services through the HA Go mobile app and the clinical management system used by healthcare professionals, whether the government knows the number of teleconsultation services provided by HA through these channels to date, the number of patients involved, as well as the respective feedback from healthcare professionals and patients on these services. 2. Whether it knows the number of complaints concerning telemedicine services received by the government and relevant public organizations in the past 3 years, and the content and follow-up situations respectively of those complaints. And 3. As a study released earlier on by the Consumer Council has pointed out the privacy risks involved when consumers receive telemedicine services through applications such as WhatsApp and Zoom nowadays, whether the authorities will consider strengthening the functionality of the eHealth or HA Go mobile apps so that private healthcare service providers can provide telemedicine services to patients through these platforms and applications so as to enhance the protection of personal information and health data and promote the development of telemedicine services. Secretary for Health. President. Telehealth is a type of medical service that should be provided by qualified healthcare professionals and governed by the regulatory boards and councils of relevant healthcare professions. Healthcare professionals have the responsibility to ensure services provided through telehealth comply with the codes or guidelines promulgated by regulatory authorities, suited for the clinical setting and objective of patients, and must not compromise the standard of practice because of service mode. The Medical Council of Hong Kong's ethical guidelines on practice of telemedicine stipulates clearly that doctors need to be aware of the limits of any telehealth applications and electronic communications, and alternatives must be considered if technical and environmental limitations affect the quality of a telehealth consultation as to compromising the professional standard and duty of care of medical practices. While the government encourages professions to provide medical services by innovative means, non-healthcare professionals and companies must not promote telehealth regardless of whether the service is suitable for patients or whether such service is provided by healthcare professionals. The government will scrutinize advertisement on telehealth to ascertain whether there are violations of Undesirable Medical Advertisements Ordinance, Cap 231, and whether the services so provided have violated regulations under other legislations concerning practicing without a license. In response to the questions raised by Professor Chen, my consolidated reply is as follows. During COVID, telehealth services became prevalent in Hong Kong, enabling members of the public to access healthcare services without leaving their homes. Nevertheless, telehealth has certain limitations. For instance, the establishment of a doctor-patient relationship may prove challenging, and such services may not be suitable for patients requiring in-person clinical examinations for accurate diagnosis. Furthermore, telehealth services rely on stable technological infrastructure. Issues such as network stability and other problems may affect service quality.
patients may also need to possess related equipment, which may increase time costs and technological threshold, particularly for elderly patients or those not familiar with technology. In response to the COVID pandemic, HA, the hospital authority, has started to develop telehealth as a complementary measure and has been managing the limitations of telehealth cautiously. In general, telehealth services are more suitable for chronic patients who are clinically stable, not new cases, as well as those who do not need to visit hospitals to undergo clinical exams by doctors. The HA will arrange medical services through telehealth, having taken into account the stability of the clinical conditions of patients, their clinical needs, and actual operational situations. From April 2022 to March 2025, telehealth was involved in more than 300,000 non-COVID cases, including teleconsultations provided by the community geriatric assessment teams for elderly living in the residential care homes for the elderly, allied health such as clinical psychology service and specialist outpatient services. The HA also provides drug counseling service through remote means. The HA's telehealth services have been operating smoothly since inception, with positive feedback from patients, who generally consider the workflow simple and user-friendly, and particularly convenient for patients residing in remote areas or with mobility difficulties. Over the past 3 years, the HA received a total of 2 complaints regarding telehealth services that mainly involved patients not being clearly informed about the workflow, such as arrangements regarding booking appointments, drug collection, and referral letters. The HA had promptly provided detailed explanations and followed up with the patients concerned. The HA will continue to regularly review the impact after the application of telehealth so as to ensure the services can better meet patients' needs while maintaining cost-effectiveness. The HA's HA Go app is designed to assist its patients in managing their services in public hospitals and clinics, and is not suitable for use by private healthcare providers or their patients. On the other hand, the government is implementing the 5-year eHealth Plus development plan to upgrade eHealth into a comprehensive healthcare information infrastructure that integrates data sharing, service delivery, and process management to support various healthcare policies more effectively. In considering the development of eHealth Plus, we have to carefully assess the relevant factors, such as the appropriateness of the relevant functions, the effective use of public resources, data privacy, and system security. The government will continue to closely monitor the development and adoption of telehealth services in Hong Kong and will work with the sector and relevant stakeholders to explore the further development of telehealth in suitable services, such as outreach services and primary healthcare services, including nurse clinics and allied health services. The government will ensure boards and councils of healthcare professions promulgate and timely review specific guidelines on telehealth based on the characteristics and practical needs of the professions, with a view to protecting the interests of patients and healthcare professionals. Thank you, President. Professor Chen Wing-kwong. Thank you, President. I thank the Secretary for the reply. I believe that in order to promote the development of telehealth services in Hong Kong, we should not only focus on the services provided by public hospitals, we should look at the services provided by the private sector as well. One of the bottlenecks faced by the private sector is that we lack a platform that protects privacy. However, it looks like the government has no plans to further develop HA Go app or eHealth Plus in terms of providing telehealth services. I remember that last July, the government applied for a $1.4 billion funding to take forward the 5-year eHealth Plus development plan. Since the government has got so much funding, how come it does not plan to make use of eHealth Plus to further develop its functions so that it can offer a secure remote consultation platform for patients in Hong Kong? This can help promote development of telehealth services in Hong Kong and provide convenience for those who require medical consultation. Secretary, for the private sector, if it'd like to provide telehealth services, the relevant private healthcare consultation or organizations has to make sure that their healthcare professionals has the profession to provide such services and meet the relevant standards. eHealth Plus is a comprehensive healthcare information platform. It provides a lot of features and functions. Our goal now is not to provide a service for private healthcare organizations. Private healthcare organizations provide telehealth services with a fee. Their healthcare professionals has the responsibility to ensure the safety of their services if they are to provide telehealth services. Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, President. In the Secretary's main reply, it is mentioned that 2 complaints were received by the HA regarding teleconsultation services. Professor Chen Wing-kwong just now mentioned that we need to strike a balance. For example, we need to serve elderly patients in remote areas. From the figures provided, 2 complaints are not a lot. Will the government target elderly patients living in remote areas? For example, as mentioned in the major reply, there will be guidelines for the private sector to provide telehealth services. Will the government adopt a more targeted approach to offer help to elderly patients living in remote areas? Secretary. Indeed, elderly patients living in remote areas will benefit from telehealth services as they will not need to visit clinics or hospitals themselves. The HA has already provided telehealth services in, for example, the North District for those in need. The North District covers Fanling, Shunhui, Sha-Tao-Kok, and Cha Kuo Ling. And in some outlying islands covering 60 villages, we offer 1,200 attendances of telehealth services every year. Mr. Michael Lee. As we all know, telehealth services can benefit those living in remote areas. Will the government make use of technology such as electronic wristbands or electronic rings? Will they distribute such devices to elderly patients living in remote areas so that their heart rate as well as blood pressure level and blood glucose level can be monitored, and that such data could be sent to eHealth, and that doctors will be able to monitor the situations of the relevant patients so that they can make timely diagnosis, and that through drones we can dispense drugs to patients in need. Secretary. Our discussion mainly focused on teleconsultation services. In the broader scope, telehealth services can help monitor vital signs of patients. We can make use of innovative technology to monitor patients' conditions. With technological advancement, we do not rule out the option that there might be technologies available in the future that can help us develop teleconsultation services. However, we have to take into account cost effectiveness. While we keep collecting data, we have to think about how we can make use of such data. If we have elderly patients carrying such devices in remote areas, would that be cost effective? We have to think about that. Ms. Rebecca Chen. During COVID, telehealth services helped a lot of people. In recent years, in the private sector, telehealth services come into various forms. For example, there are video conferencing telehealth services, WhatsApp telehealth services. There are also online psychological therapy and emotional therapies. These services are often offered by non-healthcare private organizations and insurance companies. My question is the government doing anything to monitor the development of telehealth services and the evolution of such services? Should there be regulations by law? For example, we may need a better definition of telehealth services. Would there be regulations of the relevant service software and hardware so as to protect the interests and privacy of patients? Secretary. As mentioned in my major reply, telehealth services is a type of medical services that should be provided by qualified healthcare professionals. Such services should be governed by the regulatory boards and councils of the relevant healthcare professions. For non-healthcare professionals or private organizations, if they make any false promotion or advertisements in providing telehealth services, we will, in accordance with existing legislations, such as the Undesirable Medical Advertisements Ordinance, take actions. This is concerning the publicity made by the private sector. If there are cases in which non-healthcare professionals offer telehealth services, they may violate the relevant legislations of practicing without a license. For telehealth services offered through WhatsApp or text-based teleconsultation services, where diagnosis is made within the short period of time and that drug is prescribed within a short period of time, there are indeed such cases in Hong Kong. The relevant regulatory boards and councils will take disciplinary actions against the healthcare professionals concerned. Professor Priscilla Leung. I myself very much support telehealth services. My view is that with technological advancement, there should be a huge market. However, regulation is crucial. My question for the Secretary is this. Currently, we see some ethical guidelines or codes of conduct for the healthcare sector. Will there be a voluntary accreditation mechanism or white list concerning telehealth services? We can learn from Singapore and the US, for example. We can strengthen collaboration with the insurance sector to make sure that there would be a compensation mechanism for patients. Secretary. Indeed, teleconsultation services can offer help to us. We also see the importance of telehealth services during COVID. However, we have to understand that medical services have to do with the health as well as the lives of our people. The quality and safety of telehealth services should not be compromised just because of convenience. To give you an example, a person who is healthy and can move around freely should not prioritize convenience over quality and opt not to see the doctor physically, and instead opt for telehealth services online. This could be very dangerous. Medical services is not like going shopping or ordering food delivery. One mistake could have a huge impact on our health and on our lives. In terms of the idea of whitelist, we adopt the same standard as we regulate all kinds of medical services. We do not wish to see that there is a different types of standards for telehealth services or different types of standards for the relevant service providers. All kinds of telehealth services will have to meet our standards. Mr. Kitson Young. Thank you, President. I support the development of telehealth services. Such services can be very beneficial to our communities. Many elderly people have better knowledge about using technology nowadays. They even know how to do video conferencing. A lot of elderly patients, they have to spend a long time traveling to follow-up consultations. This is not convenient for them. I think telehealth services could be offered to patients with chronic conditions. Will the Secretary consider offering telehealth services to elderly patients with chronic illnesses? Secretary. Mr. Kinson Yang offered some very good examples of how telehealth services can benefit patients. For example, elderly patients with mobility issues, they can make use of telehealth, and this help reduce their burden. For patients with chronic illnesses who need to take medication in the long term, they may also opt for telehealth services. For example, patients with high blood pressure, they can, through video conferencing or remote consultation services, receive diagnosis. Mr. Lai Tong-kwok, thank you. Secretary, I can tell you that I myself very much support telehealth services. I myself has used telehealth services before. The services provided by the hospital authority is of very high quality. In your reply, Secretary mentioned that there were 300,000 cases which made use of telehealth. My question is, did you work with the Correctional Services Department to offer telehealth services to prisons in custody? Prisoners who need to go to public hospitals for follow-up consultations may take up a lot of resources. If the government can speed up development of telehealth services, it would be beneficial in terms of how you make use of resources among the correctional services departments as well as among persons in custody. Secretary, we have already expedited the development. Indeed, prisoners in custody have the need for telehealth services. Every time they go out of the prison and visit the hospital for follow-up consultation, it could be a burden for them. So telehealth services has proven to be very cost-effective for prisoners in custody. Mr. Porche, President, COVID has sparked changes and service delivery mode in community. This is not questionable. However, I think face-to-face contact is often better, and this can ensure more accurate communication. So I do understand the Secretary's concerns. The Secretary has stressed time and again in his reply just now that we have to concern whether there are any abuse of telehealth services in the private sector. I think there is not enough trust. We have to make use of eHealth Plus to ensure there could be strengthened public-private partnership. For example, the government spent a lot of time on rolling out the transcription system in courts. However, the government was very reluctant in sharing with us how the system was developed. Will the government adopt an open mind and give more trust to the private sector so as to reduce the strain on public hospitals? Secretary. eHealth Plus is a mobile app. It can also be used on computers. It is designed to offer many different functions. I mentioned about the figure of $1.4 billion. It is spent not just to ensure communication between patients and doctors. It also helps users ensure better management of services. Incorporating telehealth services into eHealth Plus will have to do with the equipment. We have to ensure that the service providers have the equipment. We have to make sure the patients have the equipment as well. For example, patients requiring X-ray exams will have to have the relevant functions on eHealth Plus. So to include telehealth services into eHealth Plus, it takes time as well as resources. Thank you.